Hi, this is Amy Beard. I'm doing Build Lecture number 2 on Chapter 5, Roots and Soils. So Chapter 5 is all about roots and soils as we get into it a little bit later. There's 3 major functions of roots. Those are anchors, absorption, and storage. So roots of plants can go, as much as up to 5 meters into the ground or up to about 16 feet. Um, you know, They usually don't go too much farther or more than that. But the roots, because of the systems that are set up, those anchor those plants in the ground. I mean, obviously, if something is, 16 feet in the ground, it's not typically going anywhere. It takes quite a lot to get that tree or plant out of the ground. So roots are major components of anchoring that into the ground. Absorption, the roots absorb water and nutrients from the soil for the plant to use in photosynthesis and, just staying alive. And then for storage, roots are always also used as storage where they store excess food after photosynthesis has taken place. So something else about root systems, there are dicot versus monocot root systems, which this is, I think, kind of cool. Dicot root systems, when those plants first start to grow through the ground, they have what's called a 2 seed leaves. The seed leaves are the very first leaves that come out of the seed once it starts to germinate. Most of those have a taproot system. So think of things like carrots, sweet potatoes, tomatoes have 2 seed leaves as they come up. So lots of different plants that have that. Monocot root systems have 1 single seed leaf. These plants tend to have a fibrous root system. So grasses have a fibrous root systems. Those are a single seed leaf that germinates from the seed. All right, so there are 4 different regions of the root: the root cap, region of cell division, region of elongation, and region of maturation. The root cap is at the very bottom of the root, and it's made of a cluster of parenchyma cells. As those cells kind of get sloughed off, it creates a kind of a slimy material, which actually helps the root grow farther down into the ground. So that's pretty neat that it's able to do that. The region of cell division, this is composed of apical meristem, and this is the tissue that actually it's actively dividing. So this is the part, so the root cap protects the region of cell division, and this is where the cells, multiply, they divide, and this is the part that adds to the region of elongation so that it helps it grow and the roots get bigger. In that region of cell division, the apicals, they divide into 3 meristemetic regions. So the protoderm, the ground meristem, and the procambium. In the region of elongation, this is where, it's about a centimeter long, and this is where the addition of secondary tissue is actually added and produced. So the region of maturation, this is the top part of the root, and this is actually where the root not the root stems, but the root hairs are formed. And this is really important because, this part where the root is mature, this is where you get the horizontal elongation of the roots, and it's added on that way, which helps anchor and add in food. The endodermis, this is actually a single layered cylinder of really compact arranged cells, and in the walls, they also have lignin and suberin. This also forms a band called Casparian strips. The Casparian strips actually prevent water from getting into the cells, and they also help regulate the types of minerals that get into the cells, because certain things can be harmful for a specific plant, and those Casparian strips can detect which ones are good and which ones are bad for the particular plant. So endodermis, is in the roots. It's not typically in the cells, and there are only actually 3 plants that are known that do not have endodermis in the roots. So, I mean, there's millions of plants in the world, so only 3 that are known. That's pretty amazing fact right there. So endodermis cells usually get thicker as they go. There are a type of cell in the endodermis, they're called passage cells. They stay thin for a while, but eventually they're going to get thicker just like the rest of them. So the vascular cylinder that I have up here, this is actually inside of the endodermis, and it conducts food and water for the plant. All right, so now we're going to talk about the pericycle. The pericycle is a layer of parenchyma cells lying right up against the epidermis. So they actually can still divide even after they're mature. So there's still growth there. Lateral roots and vascular cambium form inside of the pericycle, and the vascular cambium actually forms from parts of the pericycle. So in woody plants, there's actually a second cambium that forms, and that's called the cork cambium. That forms just outside of the vascular cambium. And this forms cork tissue. As far as determinate and indeterminate, this is a type of growth. So determinate growth is something where it grows to a certain amount and then it just stops. Indeterminate is something that's going to continue to grow and grow and grow. So, for example, tomatoes. There are determinate tomatoes and there are indeterminate tomatoes. Determinate tomatoes grow to a certain height. They produce their fruit and they're done. Indeterminate tomatoes, think about things like cherry tomatoes and jelly bean tomatoes, which are a type of grape tomato. Beefsteaks, those are all indeterminates. Their plants grow and grow and grow. They are just a vine. They just keep going until they really kind of get froze out, or the weeds take over. That happens too. But another type of an indeterminate plant would be a tree. They have that extra layer of cambium that continues to grow. So there are some specialized roots, things like food storage, water storage, propagative, and then pneumatophores. So these different types of specialized roots, the food storage roots, if you think of things like sweet potatoes, which is in the picture there, and carrots, radishes, anything that's a root vegetable is what we call them also. These store large amounts of starch, and in that they swell and protrude and grow. And that's what turns into the food, some of the food that we can eat. So carrots, beets, turnips, and radishes are actually a combination of the root and stem. Not quite so much of the stem, but they are a combination. So water storage roots, think pumpkin family, they store large amounts of water in the roots themselves, and these are very common in arid climates. The propagative roots, these are ones that they grow out from the main plant, and you can actually separate those, clip those off and set those, and they'll actually come into a full plant. So apple trees, pear trees, those are pretty common. Another one that is really becoming quite the nuisance, especially in our area, is the tree of heaven. And it's a special plant. And it definitely has lots and lots of propagative roots. And if you don't know how to get rid of it, it is absolutely an invasive species. So the nematophores, these are the ones that are actually, you've got plants that are in the swampy areas, things, or very wet locations. And these nematophores are roots that actually grow just above the water level for exchange of gases so that the trees can breathe and get the air that they need. All right, so more specialized roots, you have aerial roots. Some prevent the loss of moisture, while others help, like with corn, prop roots, they actually help keep the stalk upright in windy storms. I've seen them fail. We used to grow right around 400 to 500 acres of corn every year for our dairy cattle. Big enough storm will take them down. The contractile roots, they actually pull the plants deeper into the soil. So think of things like lilies and dandelions. Dandelions are definitely one that you can tell they just look sunk in the ground. Buttress roots, which there's a picture of on this slide right here, they are more angular appearing roots that are above ground. So these plants typically grow in places that have very shallow soil. Parasitic roots. These are plants that don't have their own chlorophyll, so they have to find host plants, something like mistletoe. Mistletoe is a parasitic plant, and they will actually put out these protrusions that are called haustoria, and they will reach out, these little protrusions will reach out to the host plant and usually grab onto the stem and penetrate that and get into the xylem and the phloem so that they can get nutrients that they need to survive. All right, so mycorrhizae is a mutualistic fungi, which means it's, beneficial to the plant and the fungus. So they work off of each other, and it is a form of symbiosis. So 95% of all plants have mycorrhizae. So it is definitely important and essential for normal growth in all plants, or most plants. So there's two different types. Ectotrophic, which is typically found in things like pines and oak trees. And it does not invade the cells. What it does is it forms on the root surface, and it's called a mantle. Where the other kind, endotrophic, it does invade the cells, so there's no mantle present. This is the majority of woody plants and herbaceous plants on land. So 80% of our atmosphere is nitrogen gas. However, plants cannot absorb those, except for there's a bacteria that produces enzymes that allows plants to convert the nitrogen into forms that it can use. So the legume family, peas and beans and things like that, they actually contain large numbers of nitrogen-living bacteria called rhizobium bacteria. And this bacteria causes the formation of those nodules and allows those plants to convert that nitrogen. So humans have been able to utilize plants for thousands of years in terms of food, obviously different spices, dyes, drugs, and insecticide. Soil horizons, these are just, you can see in this picture, this is a great picture of the different layers of the soil because it's very defined as far as the colors. The O horizon is your organic material, so your grasses are the roots and things like that. A horizon is your topsoil. E horizon is that light colored layer right under the topsoil, so that's those two are your best soils for growing in. The B horizon is a large area, kind of the lower part of where the roots are going to reach for, because most of your nutrients are in A and E. And then the bottom part is the C horizon. This doesn't have much organic, well, it doesn't have any organic at all. very little activity. This is more of a lot of rocks and things that aren't helpful. The formation of soil takes many, 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 many years and has to do with the parent material, the climate, the living organisms, and how those living organisms break down the organic material, and then the topography that has a lot to do with it as well. Soil texture, you have 3 types of soil particles: sand, clay, silt, and those mixed together can give you a loam, which is really the best type of soil. So for soil structure, you have groups of soil particles that form called aggregates. And within these aggregates, there are pore spaces. Depending on the type of soil, the pore spaces allow for air and water. And some stick together much better than others, like clay, and some not so much, like sand. Thank you.